You are a rock star for clicking on this video. You know you are. We're getting straight into this Disney tier list. Ralph Breaks the Internet made a video about it recently. God-awful film. Incredible product placement advertisement is essentially what it breaks down to. It's basically Disney flexing their muscles about all the different properties that they have. Maybe it's a unique concept, but it's awful in execution. Zootopia, very good film. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I think it's excellent. I think the social commentary is very good. I think that it's paced well, keeps you on your edge of your seat. Maybe it could be bumped down to A tier because the villain is not good. Excuse me. 101 Dalmatians. We'll put this in watchable. Some of these films I haven't seen in over a decade, this being one of them. I will say I don't remember actively disliking it, so that's why it's going to be in C tier. Aladdin is an absolute banger, no doubt about it, going straight into S tier. The music, the animation holds up really well. I love how it's hand-drawn and still is able to hold up. Robin Williams, rest in peace. He does an incredible job vocalizing the genie in this film. It's a masterpiece that will never truly be emulated as it's tried to be, but has come very short. Alice in Wonderland, I would say this is a decent film. Not a great one. I'm going to put it in watchable as well, right in C tier next to 101 Dalmatians. I think that it's pretty slow, its pace, like a lot of the early Disney films were. But I don't think it's offensively bad. Here we go to Atlantis. Atlantis is good. I like the adventure that it takes you on. It's a really colorful cast of characters that keeps you entertained with what their stories are individually. And overall, it's a film that I come back to every now and then if I want to go on an underwater adventure. Bambi. I'll put Bambi. I'm between C and B, but I'm going to put Bambi in C tier. Another one where it's, a cute story, but it's not one I ever really come back to. On the contrary, Beauty and the Beast is going straight into S tier. I think this is almost a perfect romance film with a great score and instrumentation throughout. The pianos that you hear from the artists on the soundtrack of this film, I mean, it's sensational, and it's a story that is as old as time and will continue to age well. A lot of them are going into S tier, but guess what? Big Hero 6 is also going into S tier. This is a favorite of mine personally. I know many aren't as high on this film as I am. I think that the superhero genre is really saturated, obviously, in today's film landscape. And this is one that feels different from the others, in my opinion. Baymax is cute. I forget the main character's brother's name off the top of my head. I don't remember, but I remember how tragic I felt in the theater watching his. I don't know if I can say what happened to him specifically on YouTube, but it's a very powerful scene and very sad. But overall, good film, animated really well. It's tight. Well, go watch it. I love it. Bolt. I'm not gonna get a lot of love for this. It's going to go, it's better than Bambi. It's better, I think that's it. It's going to go in C tier. I think this is an overrated one in my opinion. It's a film made for kids, and it's very evident throughout in my opinion. I think the gimmick of Bolt not realizing that he is not a super dog kind of wears on you pretty quickly in my opinion, and it's not one I really rewatch. But if you like Bolt, tell me why. Brother Bear, fantastic film, fantastic score, fantastic animation, going straight into A tier, right next to Atlantis. Not the cream of the crop, in my opinion, but fantastic film. Chicken Little, this is trash. Guys, I rewatched Chicken Little recently in the last few weeks, expecting to laugh and enjoy the film, and it really wasn't that funny. It really wasn't, other than the sky is falling meme that this film has originated. I just didn't love it, but maybe it'll grow on me with time. I'll put Cinderella. It's one of those old Disney princess films that, this is probably the best story of the lot. So actually, I'm going to bump it to B tier, and it's probably going to end at the bottom of B tier, but it's a very good story that is world-renowned with its, ubiquitous nature. Everyone knows about the glass slipper, and for that reason, it's going to be in B tier. It's a good underdog. I say underdog, I mean, she's Cinderella, but how all of the forces of the film are kind of against her, and she somehow finds a way to be happy. Strange World, a newer Disney film. This is, I wouldn't say trash, but it's definitely not good. And it's not good. There's just not a whole lot going on. I mean, of course, there's beautiful visuals, but the story isn't that entertaining. Neither are the characters, in my opinion. I remember Searcher as one of the names of the characters. I think I liked him the most, but their personalities aren't, captivating enough for me to want to come back often. Wish, I'm going to put straight in trash, to be honest. Wish is another new Disney film that I thought was very forgettable, and honestly, that's probably a bigger sin than being aggressively bad of a film. Dumbo is going to go unwatchable, and it's going to go on the bottom of watchable. Yet another older Disney film that's pretty good, but not one I revisit often. Encanto, very good film. It's going to go into A tier solely because of how beautiful it looks combined with the score. The narrative beats are a little weak to me. That's probably what's keeping it out of S tier. I didn't cry like I expected to in a lot of the newer Disney films, but at the same time, the soundtrack almost alone puts it in A because we don't talk about Bruno, no, Fantasia 2000. I'm going to be honest, this is another one I haven't watched in maybe like 15 years, so I'm going to put it in watchable, but I admittedly do not remember much about it. Frozen is next. This film in the early 2010s took the world by storm. It may have even come out in 2016. No, I think it was earlier than that. I think it may have been 2013. But regardless, it's a very good film, I would say. One that does not warrant a sequel like you will see soon, but an original story with a great, memorable soundtrack that sold, thousands and thousands and thousands of records, I'm sure. Everybody loves Frozen. If you haven't seen it, I don't know how you haven't. However, Frozen 2 is not as nearly as good. I think that it was clear there's not much going on to continue the story that the original presented. Overall, it's clearly a weaker sequel in terms of the storytelling, and it's not one I will probably go back to for a very long time. Hercules, on the contrary, is going into S tier. Incredible, almost the pinnacle of 90s Disney animation. The soundtrack is sensational. The story is sensational. It's better than Big Hero 6, honestly. It's probably better than Beauty and the Beast, but I don't know if it's better than Aladdin. Fantastic story, fantastic characters, everything's great, and it's a really satisfying conclusion when Hercules actually does end up becoming a god. Home on the Range is going into trash for me. I know this one has a lot of people who like it, but I don't like Home on the Range. The villain is kind of funny, but other than that, it's a really forgettable story in my opinion. Lady and the Tramp, I'll put it in good just for the nostalgia of the scene that is on the poster, but I admittedly don't remember much of the story beats of this film, so it easily could be in C. But if you think it doesn't belong in B, let me know why and if it's worth rewatching. Lilo and Stitch, it's definitely at least A tier. Is it S tier? Yeah, it is. It's S tier. Everyone knows Lilo and Stitch and its incredible, memorable characters. I think that the story it tells is such a unique one from an incredibly original perspective, and it's one that is almost universally loved as it's fun at the end of the day. It's a good film that's lighthearted and easy to come back to, and it's aged pretty well. Meet the Robinsons is an underrated one in my opinion. I'm going to put it at the top of A tier, honestly. The villain has layers. The main character has layers. I think that the twist at the end of the main character actually having, like, it being his family is a good one, and it was unexpected upon my first watch. Great film, incredibly unique concept, absolutely love it. Moana, I'm also going to put Moana in A tier. Very good film, incredible animation, the water looks sensational. The soundtrack is kind of repetitive, but it's still very good, and it made so much money at the box office. It's clearly beloved by many. This is Moana 2 here we're about to talk about. It's a bit of a tough one because sequel culture is so ingrained within Disney's animation studios at the moment. I'm going to put it in watchable and at the bottom of watchable, as it doesn't seem that there was as much effort put into this film as there was the first. And I think that's evident upon many facets. Mulan is going to be in... Honestly, I'm going to put Mulan in S tier. It's really, really good. Soundtrack, of course, gas. Everything about it, heat. I mean, the story, the villain, the story arc that Mulan herself goes on from the beginning to the end of the film, how her family's perspective has changed about her as the runtime continues. It's a really good movie, guys. Peter Pan, I'm going to put Peter Pan in watchable. I'm going to say it's just better than Alice in Wonderland. Early Disney, fun story, and a good. I'm gonna put it in good, actually. I think Peter Pan belongs in good just because of Hook and how fun he is as a villain. Pinocchio, I'll put it at the bottom of watchable. It's not one. I mean, obviously, it's very well received, upon its release, since there's been a remake, live action. But I mean, other than the pop culture relevancy, it's not one I ever really plan on going to rewatch for quite a while. And it's essentially this exact same thing that I just said can be said about Pocahontas. Raya and the Last Dragon, Awkwafina really leaves a bad taste in my mouth on this film. I'm going to put it in trash, actually. I've only watched it, I think, twice. And Awkwafina's voice, to me, when I hear it, it just doesn't fit the way the character looks. And I think they could have... I prefer people who aren't established actors, for the most part, and actresses, to be voicing characters in films. And when you bring in one who gets as much work as Awkwafina does, it's so obvious that you're watching her, and really it's hard to separate them from the character. Robin Hood, been about 15 years for me on this one. I'm going to put it just above Strange World, solely because of how good the story and the motives of Robin Hood are. Then we have Sleeping Beauty. I don't like this one very much, to be honest. I wanted to like it. Is it in trash? It's not in trash. It's at the bottom of C. Maleficent is a fun villain, but it suffers from a lot of the films in early Disney do, where the pacing is slow and it really takes its time to where you're checking your watch, and I'm like, man, I really would want this to be going faster than it's going. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is definitely better. I'm going to put it in good, only because how Snow White interacts with the dwarfs. I think that they're really fun, and their personalities are all different, obviously, in their own way, and thus it lends to unique moments with each of them. It's a good film. Tangled is going to go into A tier, perhaps the best new Disney film in modern Disney, I would say. Original, which I think is fantastic. And the villain is very good also, with selfish motives, but motives that you could understand why someone would have. Flynn Rider is also fantastic. The horse is fantastic. It's a great film. Honestly, could go S tier. Honestly. Tarzan, I'm going to put it in good. It's a film made for kids, and it's obviously not one that they have a lot of social commentary or, a lot of things that an adult would reflect on in the film. So it's going to go straight in the average tier for me. Emperor's New Groove, though, is going to be in the S tier. It's probably better than Lilo and Stitch, in my opinion. I think Kronk is so funny. Arguably the best character in the film. And the story that the Emperor goes on, from being so selfish to slowly becoming less selfish as he needs to rely on some people more than himself. And it's obviously somebody turning into a llama isn't realistic, but the actual character arc that the prince goes on, or the emperor goes on rather, is somewhat believable. Hunchback of Notre Dame is also going to go into S tier. Frollo is the most evil villain in Disney, in my opinion. The score is really good, and it's a feel-good movie overall, I would say, in terms of how it ends and the story it tells. Jungle Book is good. Obviously, it's had its remakes in live action. The score is fantastic, and it's kind of a Tarzan but better type of movie. They tell a little bit different stories, but when you're having a person who grows up in the jungle around animals and you're talking about Tarzan or Jungle Book, I'm going to go for Jungle Book every day of the week. Lion King, straight into S tier. My mouse maybe put it in F tier. It's going straight into S tier, and honestly, it's going right at the top where it belongs. I mean, what can I say about Lion King that hasn't already been said? The Little Mermaid, I'm going to put in B tier. I think it's a fun film. Obviously, it's got its live-action remake, and I just think it's dated by some of the tropes that early Disney animation studios went through in terms of having the male counterpart to the princess be, the person who saves the day and that she needs to rely on for happiness. Still a good film, though, and that was kind of a bit of a more in-depth analysis than I was expecting to say. Winnie the Pooh, I mean, we'll put it in watchable. I think it's okay in C tier. It's dated, but it's not one I go back to. Made for kids, and it's clearly made for kids. I'm gonna put Princess and the Frog in A tier. Very good film, fun. Dr. Facilier's song sticks in my head all of the time, and it's a really, I think honestly, it's a really overall unique experience that you won't find any other film, honestly. Home stretch here, Sword in the Stone. We'll put it in watchable. Been about 15 years for me on this one, but I remember how satisfying it felt to see the little boy pull the sword from the stone originally when everybody wasn't expecting it to happen like that. The Three Caballeros, I actually watched this one recently and it's going into trash. It was very, very difficult to make it through. A lot of the stereotypes that are associated with what you would think are present, and it's dated like milk, in my opinion. Treasure Planet, very good film. Is it better than Atlantis? I think a lot of people mix these two up, and kind of for good reason, but they're different, and I think Treasure Planet is just a bit worse. I'm going to put Treasure Planet above Frozen, and that's where it's going to be, as I think it's a great adventure that I occasionally revisit. Soar, I already ranked Winnie the Pooh, so we're going to put it back in C. Oh, is this a sequel? Was that the Winnie the Pooh sequel I ranked before? And finally, we have Wreck-It Ralph. Great film, great concept. It knew what it wanted to do. It stuck to its guns, unlike the sequel. It's going to go in A tier, yeah. And this is it. This is the full list of my Disney Animated Studios tier list rankings. What would you change? Where do you think I was wrong? And if you've made it this far into the video, I really, really appreciate you watching. Check me out tomorrow. I'm going to be back for another tier list. I greatly would appreciate you subscribing to help make the dream a reality. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.